It's Azhar and Amir here. So welcome to our first episode of Steer with Azhar and Amir. We really appreciate the support, that we've garnered on LinkedIn. And we didn't want to just give, generic tips. We want to show you how these tips can be put into action and genuinely help you in everyday life. So that's what we're doing here today. One thing to mention, some good news and some bad news. The bad news is someone's had to drop out last minute, unfortunately. But the good news is that if you just type your comments if you type in your comments, we'll try and answer one of your questions for a quick 10-minute slot.
Yeah, amazing. So the first one we've got on is Devang. So we'll admit him into the room right now.
Yep, he's on.
Hey, Devang, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you guys see me?
We can't see you yet, no. Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
now can you guys see me?
Perfect.
How you doing, my man? How's everything going?
I'm good. How are you guys? First of all, thanks for having me.
No worries, man. So just to start with, if you could just let us know, a bit about your personal situation, the questions you have, just so everyone at home can see as well.
Sure. So I'll just start by giving like a quick intro about myself. So I'm currently in Singapore. I'm a senior at Singapore Management University, and I'm originally from India. So I came to Singapore in 2017. I am someone who's really interested into getting into the management consulting industry. So basically, previously I worked at this consulting firm called Kantar Consulting, and that's where I got this interest from. So my question basically to you guys was that I have all the, the usual criteria that they list out, that you need to have like academic scores, you need to have like internships with like, say, some brand companies, you need to have some impressive like leadership positions. But even then, I'm not sort of being able to get through the first stage, which is the resume screening process. And get to the interview stage. So that's what I was like looking towards, like if you could guide me a little bit, because I know like Amir's already got into McKinsey, and like that's possibly a place that I really want to get into. So like I was just wondering like if you can give me any advice on that, and specifically considering the job market, how can I turn this around? How can I turn the situation around? Yeah.
So 100%. Yeah, Azhar, if you want to bring up Devang's CV now.
Yeah, we'll do. Just give me 1 second so we just talk through it.
So Devang is someone who's got, if you look at the kind of experience, you look at especially the grades, genuinely phenomenal stuff. But for some reason, there's been a couple of objections. We want to look through some of these things and maybe understand why that might be the case. So if you look right at the top of the CV, you've got fantastic GPA, good awards, good scholarships, top 1% of the country. So what is kind of happening here? Azhar, do you want to give some of your thoughts?
Of course. So the first thing I see is the, you have got the consulting experience and everything. My biggest point is the use of numbers. So this is something that we hear a lot, using numbers within our CV to quantify the efforts that we have. And this is something that is very easy to get wrong also. So whenever you use numbers, you always have to think about how is this number conveying value to the person who's reading it, right? So what I mean by that is when you mention here, for example, that you've crafted 14 country-specific market reports, that's not necessarily something that they're going to care about as much as it would be, if you talked about, you increase the conversion rate of sales from this to this, for example, or something here which I liked is, you added 2,000 customers. Now, those are the kind of things that add value. Whereas in some cases, like, when you say 200 billion beverage client or the future of commerce in 2030, that's not necessarily something that's adding value.
Yeah, the biggest thing I want to highlight here is that, it doesn't matter how many reports you did, because unless you convey the quality of those reports, right? So to tell you did 14 or 50, the number doesn't change how I view that. What changes all those things is if the report was 20 or 30% better than what somebody else was expected to do, or you went above and beyond in some capacity. And communicating that is really essential when you're using numbers.
What you're saying, sorry to interrupt, makes a lot of sense. The only struggle that I have with crafting my sort of bullet points in that way is the problem is that these consulting projects, like these are just the stages of the entire project, right? So you don't really get to see what the client did with that data, the strategy that we made, and what was the result of the implementation, if they implemented it at all. So then how can I sort of quantify the impact when I don't really know what happened?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think this is the difficulty when you're actually working in a job in and of itself. What I
Yeah.
would personally say is you can look at the client feedback, for example, because all consulting firms, ask for clients, what was the quality of work like? How was it? Be able to get that and talk about that specifically is going to be, really impressive. There are also qualitative ways in which you can show how you specifically went above and beyond in the work that you did, and kind of showing, not just describing what you did, but also why that was unique or why that is different. I want to be able to see in the first 2 sentences, understand what it is that you've done and why that isn't like a normal thing for you to be able to do, why it's genuinely quite impressive. Azhar, do you have some other comments you wanted to make as well?
Yeah, so an additional comment is that, so first thing that you want to do is you want to read through every single line of your CV to ask why it deserves to be there, for example, and what it tells about you,
Yeah.
right? So when you adopt that kind of mindset, you'll be able to identify 2 different types of things in your CV. The first thing is something that shows value of what you've done.
Yeah.
So, for example, the Facebook ads at low cost, that's you adding value, right? It shows how you added value. However, when you say something like one of which was sold here in terms of your project proposal, I'd like to know a bit more about, how did that add value? Because that someone reading that who doesn't know about that doesn't really gain a bigger understanding. The other thing I'd advise is to shorten down some of your bullet points.
Okay.
Like with particularly with these sentences under HSBC, they're quite long sentences, and someone who hasn't read your CV before, for example, might be overwhelmed by the fact that you're using 3 different sets of numbers here.
Okay.
So identify what it is, which of those numbers you feel is more descriptive as opposed to adding value, and then I would remove or shorten them.
Got it.
Amir, do you want to comment on the leadership experience?
Yeah, so if you're applying to a consulting role, for everyone listening who really wants to get into consulting, leadership is extremely important. It can be quite a wide term, but what that means is you're able to hold a room, you're able to make decisions and take ownership of the work that you're doing. When I read your leadership, when I read the first one, consulting project team, you had a 3-person team. It isn't, for me, that isn't sufficient. There isn't sufficient leadership to explain how this is different from your work experience up earlier. Your second thing, the leading the team of 30 people, that's really good leadership experience. I want to hear more about that, how you did it, how you managed everyone, how you talk about the sub teams, what kind of leadership practices you used, and how you were speaking with people. The thirdly, the lead singer of an actor is an amazing thing, as a person, to get to know you, that you do that. But in terms of leadership experience, you need more of, I want to be able to put you, Devang, in front of a client and say, I'm just going to let him handle it. And in order to do that, I really want to know what experiences have you had in the past that means that, you have excellent verbal communication skills, excellent written communication, because a lot of consulting is about having a great idea and communicating that across to the client, which is why that's especially important. So leadership before beyond everything else, I would move it up and kind of add some other experiences that you've had. Whether you were leading a small team, working somewhere, or whether you were leading, as you said, for your college freshman bash.
Yeah, got it.
And last thing I'd say is, this is a tip for everyone, actually. It's really, really easy to do. So the first thing you want to do is you want to identify the qualities that a firm you're looking to apply to is looking for, right? So you're looking to apply into consulting. So what I would always suggest doing is search up a few jobs at companies that you want to apply to and read through their role descriptions of what they're looking for. Start using words that they use in their role descriptions, their action words, for example. Because then when they read through your CV, obviously they're going to realize that you fit the description quite well. Like, make it blindingly obvious. So, for example, if I was applying to a sales role, I would always be talking in sales terms that I find, like keywords like prospecting or like qualifying leads, for example. So you want to be using similar action words that are relevant to consulting. So, project management, that kind of thing. So in places, for example, where you've used words such as won or sang, led, for example, you might want to reframe how you talk about that to make it sound, more consultative, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because like one of the things that I've heard is like many of these companies use like softwares to like read through your CV So if you have like similar word matching skills, then they sort of get selected. So I think what you said makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Exactly, man. Like, so do you have any like other questions or anything you're worried about in particular with the CV?
I think what you said, what both of you said, is pretty spot on in terms of like the numbers as well. I think that's something that I can definitely work on. Biggest challenge would be just working on the first section, which is for my most recent internship, because I don't really know the impact. So I'll have to like sort of like think strategically how to best portray what I did and add value to what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I want to pick out one line, and this applies to a lot of people. Like your bullet point 2 of work experience 1, generated actionable insights to unlock growth opportunities in ASEAN region. Now, when I hear that phrase, that means nothing to me. Let me explain what I mean. You know, anyone can say they created actionable insights to unlock growth opportunities. That is an accurate description of what you've done, but it's not a description that sells what you've done, right? So I want to gain some insight into what were these insights and what were the growth opportunities? You know, how much did that mean? And, you know, perhaps what did the client say about those insights, right? Because of course your insights should be actionable, but I need to know more about, you know, some more specificity there about exactly, you know, what it might be that you've done, or how you went about gaining these insights, or how that kind of came to the surface. Because right now anyone could have written that, and I don't know why I should trust these actionable insights over others, because I see those kind of phrases really often.
Got it. I think that makes sense. Yeah. Thanks.
And yeah, by the way, like, don't take this like in a harsh way at all, because like I do see that you're a very good candidate.
And yeah, excellent grade. Genuinely, some of the
Yeah.
best grades I've seen in a lot of different CVs.
I definitely think you'll take some initial time to reflect on the feedback, and
Yeah.
also reflect through the experiences themselves, right? Because I'm sure that you did some genuinely incredible stuff here, which had a lot of impact. But it's always thinking about the so what factor is something that I heard a lot. Like whenever you write a sentence, think about why would the client or why would the firm want to hire me as a result of that? Like if you said something instead of going created like I don't know, like an analysis report that enabled the company to consider expanding operations into like a different region, and then you quantify that in some way, that's me seeing, okay, so as a result of your particular like research, the company considered a new growth region, and it's like that's something he might bring to the company that we work at. So it's all about that value component.
Got it. Makes sense.
Awesome. Do you have any more general questions related to CV or anything else that you want to ask at all? If anyone has a question in the chat, by the way, put it in there, because we've got this 10-minute segment before we've got the next person on.
So quick check, how much time do we have left?
So we've got about 7 minutes, but that's assuming nobody else asks a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. To be honest, like this was actually, yeah. So basically this is my consulting resume, right? But I think with Amir and Azhar as well, I think I share with you guys, like I also want to work for like innovative companies. So like like strategy roles instead of like say consultative roles for consulting companies. I would rather do like also like strategy roles. So would you have like any suggestions on how I can change these specific experiences and optimize them towards that? Those kind of roles?
So I think, so by strategy roles, do you mean like strategy consulting?
Yeah, so like you actually do like strategy for a particular company instead of like doing it for several clients. So you like go in a company and then do it just for them.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think it's really interesting to look at how that works. I think you've got to look at it from 2 points of view, right? The first thing is, what kind of companies are you therefore applying to? Because it's very difficult to tailor a CV unless you know the companies you're applying to. So what kind of companies are innovating right now? What are they looking to doing? Are you looking at startups? Are you looking at firms which are maybe conglomerates, but actually have a kind of entrepreneurial reputation? What positions within these firms I tend to apply to? A lot of the times you might be looking at, within the growth division, like Uber has a huge growth division in lots of countries, looking at how they can expand and change their strategy. So you want me to think about what divisions and what kind of companies you want to apply to, and then looking again, as I was saying, the keywords, the key roles, and applying to that, because you can do a lot in strategy consulting, but you also want to be explaining, what value can you bring to that company as well. So, first thing is which companies, and then how can you, what unique experiences do you have that can really add, can genuinely add value in what they're doing? So to give that a concrete example, if you know that you've researched Uber, for example, in X country that you're working in, they're, expanding to this city, the experiences you have in there, a consulting project you worked in the past, something you've done which has direct, tangible relevance to what they want to go into, that kind of thing can be incredibly useful. But again, it's taking that research, taking that time out to find out, because that can be quite specific. And it's only you who can do that, because only you have that bank of all the experiences in your mind, and you can relate to what you're doing, if that makes sense.
And one last tip of when you're applying, find out the organizations you really want to get into, right?
Yeah.
So have them as your priority, and then have the ones that you don't care as much about, right? Or like you would like to, but you may not accept the offers. So for the ones you really want to apply to, go and look through all their role descriptions and take out the most common ones, right? Before you apply, I want you to tick them off one by one, the skills that they want or looking for, if your CV demonstrates some level of that skill, all right? So I guarantee you the first time you do that, what you're going to end up is that you do like one tick and there'll be like no other ticks.
Yeah.
and you'll be like, wait, what's going on? Because I've got some great experience. And that's when you realize that what you've written in your CV, as good as it is, does not directly tick that box. And then what you end up doing is you end up rewording it in order to make it sound more similar to what they're looking for, while still showing the value that you added. Yeah. So you have to think, if you can't tick off every single box and skill that they're looking for, how will the hiring manager for that firm be able to tick that off for you? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Nothing more to add to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love your enthusiasm, man. I think that for you, it's just a case of reframing your experiences. I think a big one for you is, getting in that initial door for consulting.
Yeah.
Because once you get in the door, I have the confidence, and you have results to talk about, you can easily work your way up. So for you, I definitely say apply to a lot of different firms, not just the really, like MBB, the really big ones, but also to smaller boutique firms as well.
Yeah.
And tailor your applications. Yeah.
Got it. Anyway, just want to say, like, I've been following you guys on LinkedIn for a while now. So love what you guys are doing. Really, really enthusiastic about that. So good luck for that, and really good work.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you so much. Genuinely, yeah, I really appreciate that. Awesome. So we've got I'm going to pick a question from the chat. We've got about 2 minutes here. Fabian asks, as a student about to begin in September, what would you recommend to do under lockdown to improve your skills and your resume, looking to work in finance or consulting?
Okay, do you want to take that, or shall I take that, Amir?
Happy for you to go that.
Okay, so a couple of things. The first thing is, don't put too much pressure on yourself. In this situation, what you want to do first is gain a better understanding of what consulting is. And the mechanism by which you can do that is first research consulting and the kind of skills that they look for there, etc. Then try and contact individuals who work within consulting. You can do that by first, leaving like certain questions on like their posts on LinkedIn if they've worked in consulting, so you can answer a lot of your questions. Generally speaking, a lot of like the consulting internships that you might do in like placement year or like at university will be quite Excel heavy. So I always recommend, at this stage, getting like a good grasp of Excel and being able to do functions such as, like the VLOOKUP, index match, all of that kind of stuff, while at the same time learning more about consulting in general through talking to those people.
Yeah, those are important skills to have. While they're not always essence for, they're kind of skills which always will help you in all careers you're doing. In terms of general skills, I'd really recommend is if you have the time, you find yourself being able to do something, think of a side project, something you've been thinking of working on, and just go out and do it. A lot of people have ideas in their head and they're not prepared to actually go out and do it right now. What I'd recommend if you're watching is take the idea you have. Like, a lot of you have this idea in the back of your head, you want to do it. You've been thinking about it for a long time. It's a perfect opportunity. Take just 3 days of planning, or maybe 7 days. And then on your 8th day or your 4th day, just do it. Start launching, start selling, start testing, start building. Whatever it is, actually start doing something and have a fixed deadline in your mind of what you want to do. Whether that's you want to start programming, you want to start a business, you want to begin your side hustle that you've been thinking about for a long time. just start doing it. You will learn more from that process of doing than you will from a lot of different books. If you need extra knowledge, pick that up along the way. That's the main thing I'd say.
And I think that's probably more important than, watching, I think, loads of courses, for example, because that kind of like practical knowledge is something you'll always be able to talk about in any interview. So strongly recommend that.
Awesome. So I think Josh is just waiting now, so we're going to bring him in.
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
Hi.
Josh, can you hear us?
Yeah. Hey, thanks.
For it to load.
How's everything going, man?
Yeah, it's good. Just trying to keep busy, same as everyone. I'm actually starting an initiative, not kind of like a business, but non-profit, just giving advice to year 11 and year 12.
Love
so I
that.
started that with my friend. Yeah. Hopefully
That's
there's
really good.
progress.
Giving back. Yeah.
Yeah, because I found that year 13, everyone struggles to kind of juggle everything, but found it's more because school doesn't prepare you enough for like university application and other things. So trying to fill that gap.
Josh, do you have a webcam?
Yes, I do. Oh, sorry,
Come
it's
on.
not on. Yeah. So I didn't realize.
And
There we go.
in terms of how we might be able to help, do you have any like specific questions or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much you know about the investment banking or financial services industry, because that's kind of where I want to tailor myself to. I know that's where my interests lie right now, and it's really heavily contested with students my age. So if there's anything to stick out, because I've got good grades, quite relevant work experience, but I feel like everyone has that. So if there's anything that I can do to stand out.
What stage are you in? How old are you right now?
I'm 18, so I'm starting university this year, hopefully.
Okay, amazing. So, as you don't take this, or do you want me to go with this?
I'll let you start with this one.
All right. So, when you go to uni, there are loads of things you can be doing. Obviously, this depends on where they'll be running, but several points to bring up. The first of all is go and try different clubs and societies, things you might enjoy. Even if it's something that's not like strictly financially, it doesn't have to be the finance society. If you enjoy it, getting leadership experience there can be amazing. The second thing I'd say is, find a group of people who are interested in the same things as you do. Having that almost mastermind group around you who love what they do, who are passionate, who have same interests, is extremely useful, because you will discuss and deliberate amongst that group, and they will, you'll come back from an interview and you'll be like, Josh, what did you think? And you're like, okay, so I gave this answer, and they'll give their feedback. And you as a group will learn and progress together. Be able to share your information, and that will be, trust me, so invaluable. So go and find those people when you go to uni, and trust me, there are so many of them. As I said, the competition, because there are people. So form those genuine connections with them, and find that group, because that's going to be really, really, really crucial. Third thing is, if you really want it, and again, it's not for everyone, but when you apply to spring weeks, for example, you apply to the internships, be quite systematic with it. Have a spreadsheet, apply to as many as you can. Prioritize based on how much you want that internship. I always have 2 columns: how easy is it to apply, how much effort is it to put in, and how much do I want it. I multiply those 2 numbers together, and I get an overall prioritization, right? That can really help me. So
that's great.
Those are the 3 main things that I kind of start off the bat with.
Okay.
To add to that, so when you're applying for spring weeks, a lot of individuals, even who want to go into banking, don't apply systematically.
Yeah.
So if you apply to like as many as you can, right, like in priority order, you will have a much better chance of getting a spring week than someone who is applying to 5 or 6. So a big recommendation is that early in the process, know when the close dates are and start applying. Also look at the ones which judge on rolling applications, because rolling applications are basically when they fill their slots up early on. So even if you put in a great application after they've found their people, you won't get in. So apply early and apply to many of them.
Sure. How many would you say is many? About 15, 20?
So I think that's quite a good number. I
would say aim for 40 and get to 20.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Wow.
He's more blunt about it. If you want to guarantee yourself a spring week, I definitely would recommend doing that approach.
Sure.
Because it's much easier to convert later down the line. You might get like an advantage with a spring week of easier to get a summer, and then from a summer to a full-time position.
Yeah. And would you recommend, say for example, I have one in mind that I really want to do, but I don't get in, would you recommend then cold emailing someone that works there to try and push for a place, or is that not really
So
recommended?
if it's a big corporation, that's not going to work. They have set procedures in place. So if you're applying to say, I don't know, the Goldman Sachs of the world, or the McKinseys or the Googles,
Yeah.
it's almost never going to work.
Okay.
However, if it's a small boutique firm, you stand a much better shot because, or if it's a startup, for example, that opportunity can certainly work. So
Okay.
that's the kind of general advice there.
Okay, thanks. And also finally, so this initiative that I'm starting, I'm actually really quite into it. And I know you guys are really motivation on LinkedIn. I really like your content. Do you have any, that's okay. Do you have any recommendations on how to reach people? So obviously year 11s and year 12s, if they care about their future, they will be on LinkedIn. How to get that connection and make sure that they do keep coming back to my website and reading my content. Like
So,
people do with yours.
how are you doing at the moment? Can you just in like 30 seconds describe the process you're using right now?
Yep. So started an Instagram page to get the initial interest, developing a website now where we will have 2 sets of blogs for each year group with general advice. And then we offer tailored advice if they have any specific queries about subjects, anything. And yeah, that's where we're at so far.
Okay,
and we have, yeah.
So, go on.
So here's my first piece of advice is
Yep.
start putting your general advice out on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So what I mean by that is don't link your blog posts all the time in the LinkedIn article itself, because LinkedIn prefers native content, which means when you try to get people to click on, your website, for example, the algorithm will prevent more people from seeing that. So if you can take some of your advice and you condense that into, Word format, and if you want to link someone to your website, put that in the comments, for example, and then start putting out content. Second thing is value. You want to make sure that anyone who's in your target market who sees your content wants to follow you, wants to check out your webpage. So you have to ask yourself, is what I'm putting out in these set number of characters genuinely giving value to someone?
Okay.
It doesn't just have to be in the form of, I read this, therefore I get revision, or I get like some customized package. It can be a story, like a motivational story that someone wants to interact with, and they get value from the story, for example. Amir, anything to add?
Yeah, in terms of growing your following, first of all, being on LinkedIn is really important. But I think Insta is the way to go if you're looking at people who are currently year 11. A couple of tactics I would recommend. Posting videos is incredibly useful because it's personal. It has that human touch. So if you know how to edit videos, or you're doing that video editing, that can be incredibly useful. I have some tips for that later on as well. The additional thing is collaborate with other people doing this. There are loads of accounts who are doing similar stuff. Collaborate with them, because then you can share your users. Make a post for them, have them tag you, show them in your stories. When you help someone, ask them, do you mind sharing a story for us, or putting it on your Insta yourself, saying, these people really helped me. You reach out to them, they're more willing to help anyone. The power of collaboration and asking people who love you to say that is incredibly useful. Speaking of, if you're enjoying this live stream and you really like it, go onto LinkedIn and tag us right now if you're really enjoying it.
On the collaboration strategy, right, I'll tell you exactly why it works, right? So on one hand, let's say you have person A, and they're putting out loads of content, they're trying to grow organically, they get a few new likes, they follow those people, and each week they get 10, 15 new followers, for example, after they've added, all their friends already, right? Person number 2, 1 week in, decides, what, let me find someone who's got 400 followers or 500 followers who's also trying to help people. And let's say you get featured in one of their stories, right? Because you collaborate. You now have access to 400 people who are your exact target market, right?
Right.
So if you did a smashing post, you might even get 100 people following you, right? In one go, instead of wasting, loads and loads of days posting without collaborating. So the more collaborations you do, specifically in front of people who are your target market, who will gain benefit from your service, you will explode.
Great. Thank you.
No worries, man.
Yeah. Sorry, how long does this run for?
We've got about a minute left.
Okay, right. Quickly, for the clubs at university, is being a member fine, or should I try and push to be like treasurer or head of it, or does it not really matter? Because I know it's quite hard.
What I'd say is join things you genuinely enjoy and form real connections with people. For some societies, trying to become, the head is what you want to be doing. You want to be trying to go for different roles. Definitely do go for the roles, but don't just go for them because it's this thing you want to, just for the CV. Some people do that, but I think if you form those general connections, you will have a great time. make amazing friends, and it'll be great for your CV. Also, if you get into those positions, you're more likely to be able to actualize a change that you can talk about. So that's kind of the general points there. As I don't know if anything you want to add onto that.
Just to completely echo that, don't become a treasurer of the finance society just because that's something to write down.
Yeah.
Please, like, even if it's a society that isn't necessarily financial in nature, if you enjoy it and you turn up to all the events and then you become like the sponsorship officer, and it could be like a cultural society or anything, because you're involved, you will have so much more to talk about in terms of the networking, in terms of the partnerships you might form with other organizations and real tangible skills. So think about it from that perspective.
Great. Thank you.
No worries, man.
Thanks for the help.
Anytime, Josh. Yeah, awesome. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions related to that. But Azhar, who is next?
Okay,
We
shall I
have got
leave the meeting?
Rohan.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Catch you in a bit, man.
In a bit.
We got Rohan next. Yeah, perfect.
Hey, Rohan, can you hear us? Apparently not.
Hi,
Oh,
Hey, man, how's it
perfect.
going?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Yeah, doing really well. Really, really well.
Amazing. So I'm ready to get started.
Yeah, go on, mate.
Jump right in.
So, hey everybody, my name is Rohan. I'm a student at the University of Michigan studying business and engineering, and today I'm here today to dive into the art of personal branding. Before I begin, I hope all of you are staying safe and healthy. I'd like to give a special thank you to Amir and Azhar for putting this series together and having me. Thank you to each and every one of you for coming out and listening to some wonderful insights across the board. Now, let me begin. The way I see it, personal branding can be similar to a framework commonly used across different aspects of marketing and product management, the customer value proposition. In the scope of my business strategy class and projects, I've learned this framework through the following statement. Our product creates value for this audience by showing this particular advantage. Instead of looking at a product, place yourself as the subject of this following statement. Think to yourself, what is it that distinguishes me? How do I typically create value? And most importantly, what am I passionate about and what can I consider my calling?
So really quickly, man, sorry to interrupt you. Completely agree with everything you're saying. In the interest of time, is there anything that we can do specifically to help you in terms of personal brand?
So I would definitely say using LinkedIn is a big way to showcase your personal brand. And I feel like there are some tips that you could use to better this, such as having a different headline, having a different bio, as well as being aware of what you're posting and who you're tailoring it towards.
Sorry, so what was the question there specifically?
What are some strategies, some very technical, in-depth strategies that you could use to bolster your personal brand in LinkedIn and align it with your passion and calling?
Okay, there we go.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Are you posting on LinkedIn right now? Are you regularly posting?
No,
With that goal?
I'm not too active. In terms of reacting, yes, I'm very active and I celebrate all my friends' achievements as well as insightful posts. But one thing that I need to work on is my headline and my activity with posting.
All right, cool. So, Azhar, do you want to go over some general tips, and I can bring up Rohan's profile, and we can maybe, go through some of the posts and kind of talk through them.
Okay, so welcome to the LinkedIn algorithm. This is really quickly how it works, right? So the first thing that you want to take into consideration is that you aren't posting for validation before I get into the algorithm. So don't worry necessarily about whether you're not going to get a certain number of likes, for example, or anything like that. Start posting about things that you're passionate about. So that can be like certain insights that you have, certain experiences you have that you'd like to share, for example, that kind of thing. The reason why the headline is so important is because within the first 2 lines, you really want to capture the attention of whoever's reading, right? Because that's all they see as they're scrolling through the feed. So make sure that you catch their attention in the first 2 lines.
I definitely want to echo that. I think you want to make sure that the first thing to remember is don't be afraid of posting. If you're someone who's thinking right now, I'm not sure what people are going to say, I know people are going to think about me. What if I get hate? What if no one comments or reacts? That doesn't matter. because ultimately you have almost nothing to lose and no one is going to stop looking at what you're doing. In order to start posting though, the most crucial thing is you have to be providing value. What does value mean? You have to be able to give people something which is really important for them, which is incredibly useful. And you have to be able to communicate the fact that you're doing that. So in the first line, like literally you have to be able to tell people exactly why they should stop at your post. If you think to yourself, would I stop and read this, on my own? Like, would I stop and actually go and read my own post? If the answer to that question is no, then you have to do some serious thinking about what exactly the headline needs to be able to draw people in.
So to follow on from that, what I'd recommend everyone do, right, is look through some of the posts of people who do really well on LinkedIn, and for text posts specifically, and you'll be able to see the pattern of how people have really compelling opening 2 lines. Another important tip to consider is how to get traction, right? So what LinkedIn does is it will show your post to a small audience of people first before that widens. And depending on how much interaction it gets within, that first, 50 to 100 people, then it decides, okay, this is a really high value post. I want to show this to more and more people, or actually this is not a high value post. And then the rate of other people seeing it will slow down, and therefore it gets less interaction.
So as I was saying is you can generally predict how well your LinkedIn post will do across maybe the entire day based on the first half an hour. If you do extremely well initially, it will use that as a testing ground to show other people that post. I just want to show you, I'll share my screen and just show you some of, when I post, what do I mean by this initial headline? Because we talked a lot about headline. If you look here at networking, insider tip to get a coffee chat with someone very senior. If I read in literally what is about 10 words, what the value to me could potentially be. Again, looking for collaborators. If you're someone who's been following me for a long time, that's something that might be particularly interesting to you. Again, I've recently reached over 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. It conveys that if you're someone who wants to do that, then this is the post to tell you how you might want to go about doing that. Again, live stream, one-on-one entrepreneurship, CVs, jobs, interview help. In the first line, I'm telling you exactly what might be able to help you, and what you might be able to get out of this post. Posting is all about, the key is all about helping other people. At your heart, genuinely, if you're trying to help other people and you're thinking, wow, what can I do to actually really improve other people's lives? If you're hitting that, then you're winning, right? That's the real big key. That's the one takeaway that I would kind of say.
And one last thing, Rohan. One thing that you can do to trick the algorithm or play the algorithm, this is something that I used to do when I started posting for the very first time, right? Is ask your friends to comment on your posts. So the reason why this is smart is because let's say 3 or 4 of your friends comment on the post in the first 5 minutes, right? The LinkedIn algorithm is going, whoa, people love this post. A lot of people are interacting with this post. Therefore, let me show this post to another 100 people or another 200 people, right? And so getting that early interaction, especially when you're starting out, is super important. So if for example, I have quite a big post right now and a lot of people are interacting with it, I know that if Amir comments on that post, a lot more people are going to see it now because his audience is going to see it as well. So it's really important to encourage commenting. And that's why this technical element is the reason why so many people are comment below to get this, for example, or they're what are your thoughts on this topic or that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was amazing to hear. Thank you very much for the tips. And if you guys want to connect with me or hear what I have to say personally, feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn and connect. I would definitely love to get to know some of you as well as get posting with my own personal account.
Ryan, can you, in the chat right now, can you put down, guys, put down your details if you want to help or you talk to someone or collaborate, message Rohan right now and set up a chat with him. I'm sure he's more than willing to talk and collaborate. And, if you want to discuss ideas and make a post based upon that, go ahead and do it right now. Rohan, just put your ID in the chat.
Yeah, certainly. It'll just take one quick second to do so.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Really appreciate you coming on and definitely look forward to chatting to you more in future.
Yeah, no worries. It was an honor to get this opportunity and I look forward to the upcoming episodes and such.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Awesome. Azhar, who are we expecting next?
So we've got Mohammed Afan next.
It's someone called Rayhan Sheikh.
Sorry?
It's someone called Rayhan. I'm gonna let them in and see what happens because
Okay.
no one else has his link.
Okay, fair.
So
Curious to see if it's the same person. Oh, just connecting up to audio. Hey man, can you hear us?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
yep, we can hear you. We can't see you though.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Nice.
So if you could
how you guys
introduce
doing?
yourself, man. Yeah, really
Yeah.
well, really well.
I am Afan from Pakistan. I'm a computer science major, graduating senior. I guess my graduation is delayed for I don't know how long due to COVID. And yeah, this is it. So currently, I've been attending a lot of group discussions and interviews for recruitment. And I just had a couple of questions regarding that.
Go for it, man. Let's hear them.
So the first question was, how exactly do recruiters assess when you see the candidates getting involved in the discussions and you put forward a stance and then you see them building a conversation? So what exactly do they see or they want the candidates to put forward so that you can stand out? Like, how should I structure my answers? Or is it the solution that I present or the way I present it that matters?
That's a great question. I'm sure like this will be valuable for a lot of people, not just in the assessment center stage as well, and any kind of like group interview. So really, thank you for that, Afan. I mean, am I going to let you take this one?
You're going to, you get at me?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, awesome. So I think the first thing, and this is, you're going to have to look at the process by which they do it. So look at the interview and see how it's structured. Some of them will just be a group interview. Some of them will be a group interview followed by feedback on what you thought about it. The way you structure those two different interviews must differ. If it's just a group interview, you know you'll only be assessed on that group interview. When I was doing an interview for an unnamed large bank, they had the interview itself, but directly after that interview, we had a feedback session, like, what did you think of this interview? How do you go about it? So several points I want to bring up. The first thing is, a lot of people view it like a competition. You're competing against somebody else. True, you are, but to compete is to lose. What do I mean? If you go into it with the mindset thinking, I need to show myself as the best person, I need to throw ideas in there for the sake of ideas, how can I come across as intelligent? You will sink your own chances. The best way to do well here is to actually try and get on and genuinely help the other people, right? If you think somebody else has a better idea than you, actually give credit to that idea. People will recognize that as a genuinely useful thing. If you shoot down a really good idea because you want to shoehorn in your own idea, you will do significantly worse. The second thing is, if you know you're going to have a feedback round after that interview, make sure that you prepare for that feedback round. When I had that feedback round, for example, I'm going to just share my screen here. Here's what I did. We had three different objectives. So we had objective 1, we had objective 2, and this is my page, for example. So this is my A4 page that I had. Objective 3, and in each one of these, I put a little plus sign when somebody made a point for, and a minus sign for a point against, and I circled the really important ones. And I went into the feedback round and I said to them, look, guys, this is how did you make your conclusion? I said, well, we had the 3 criteria, and out of each of the criteria, I was able to circle the ones for and against and come to these conclusions as a result of that. So how I structured my answers made them love me in that, in 2 minutes of showing her this method of how I was writing down in the interview, she was like, okay, this guy, we have to have him on the team. That makes sense, right? So that feedback round is going to be so crucial, and making sure you can justify what you've done, that then is going to be incredibly important.
All right. Actually, that was a pretty detailed answer. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, this was the crux of the real problem that I was facing, because people were like, we're having a conversation, but it was the energy was so, it was more like a competition, just like you just said. The people were there to compete, people were there to argue rather than just solving a problem. So I think that pretty much,
Oh,
deviates from the central point of the group discussion is.
been cutting out
So
slightly there.
can you hear?
Yeah, we
you hear
can now
me?
again. Yeah, we can
Yeah.
again. One thing I'd like to add to what Amir said, and this is a really powerful mindset, right? I want you to imagine that when you're in that group, I want you to imagine that every single person in that group is one of your clients, right?
Right.
So
Correct.
if your client said something, said an idea, and you ignored that and said another idea, even if that's really intelligent, you're going to look bad. Yeah. So if someone
Definitely.
else in the group
Definitely.
says a good idea, right? What you want to do is so let's say Amir something, I'll be like, Amir, I really like the idea. Particularly what you mentioned about a specific part of the idea, I think is really applicable to this case. But what do we as a group think more about this specific thing? And then you're the person who's promoting other people to bring their ideas to the table. So they'll look at you going, not only is a really good in a team, he's already a great leader. And then this is the great thing about group interviews, right? People tag team up with one another.
Yeah,
So this
totally.
happens all the time, right? If you are like, I would love to hear what you think to someone, next time you want to say something, they'll be much more willing to listen to what you have to say. And in a room where everyone's trying to shout over each other, this is really powerful. When you do speak, don't just give opinions. So it's very much like, the STAR technique, right? So Amir, do you want to really quickly run through that with a fun?
Yeah, I mean, the STAR technique is that, the situation, the task, the action, the result. So you're talking through something, you talk about what the situation was, what the task is, the action you did, and the result out of that, if that makes sense. As you just
Yeah. So when you do that in an interview, right, you can modify that slightly in a group interview to be like, hey everyone, so in this specific case study, we're focusing on this element. So the point I'd like to raise is this one, and I think it's important because of this piece of information.
Correct. Right. I get it.
it's
right?
like, if I was having a conversation with you, like a normal conversation, it doesn't go, here's my opinion. Someone says, well, that's cool, here's my opinion. That's not how conversations work. What you
Should
want is to
exactly.
say, that's a cool opinion. I specifically like this bit about your opinion. Here's how I think this could apply to a different situation using your information. Use what they've said. Don't just acknowledge it for the sake of acknowledging it and then move on. That's the worst thing you can do.
And whenever you
Exactly.
do talk, use rationale. So a lot of people have the right idea, but they come across brash. So I've been in a lot of like interviews where someone will be like, have we looked at this? Right? Or like, we should hurry up because of time, right? You always want to position it as, hey everyone, I think we should try and condense our answers now and leave 5 minutes left because we're running out of time. Or you want to say something like, oh, let's have we decided how we're going to present if you are going to present, and like who's speaking which part. So when it gets to the presentation, you're not all like scratching your heads or talking over one another. So that kind of forward thinkingness, they will love that, right? So always think about it as if everyone's your client, and think about it as if you're not trying to compete. It's just who you are and how you interact with people in a pleasant way and bringing your intelligence.
Oh, actually, this pretty much, cleared the air, and because I was the one who used to think that it's more like a competition, and I have to speak more to get into the limelight. And yeah, it really cleared my mind. So I will now apply this new approach to see how things work.
Let me know, like DM us how it goes for sure.
Yes,
I'd be
definitely.
super interested.
Actually, I have one group discussion on 19th
Uh-huh.
for a pharmaceutical company here in Pakistan. So this is the final round. So I thought that this was an ideal opportunity to talk to you guys just before that, so I can, revamp my approach.
100%, man. Let us know. Like, I would
Yeah,
love
genuinely,
for you
send
to
me a
get that.
message.
Definitely. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much.
No worries, man. Have a great day
No
and
worries.
stay in
You have a
touch.
fantastic day, okay?
Thank you. It was nice talking to you guys.
Yeah,
Thanks.
absolute pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Lastly, Amir, we've got Arena.
Do you mean,
So-
so you got Arena coming in?
Yep.
No, she isn't in yet. I don't know if she's. Did you send the link?
I did send the link. One
Cool.
second.
In the meantime, do you want us to answer a question from the chat? Cool. So a question from the chat: what's the wisest method of tackling online tests / assessments, verbal and numerical?
So I'll let you start with that one.
Yeah, sure. So I think the first thing is to know where your strengths and weaknesses lie when you're doing these tests. Some of these tests will be kind of to your strengths, your weaknesses. But if you keep on seeing that you're getting wrong in a specific area, you keep on dropping on the verbal, or you keep dropping on the numerical, or you keep dropping in the situational judgment, understand where you're making those mistakes and go and seek practice in those areas. Second thing I recommend, everyone has a friend who really gets it. They really understand. Seek out their friend and ask them for their help on how they're tackling it. Often you'll find for the numerical especially, it's not that the maths is difficult, it's just a timing issue. It's that you're doing very simple ratio, proportion, percentage, but you just aren't quick enough. You haven't used your calculator in the right way. Use that friend's advice, see how they're doing it, look at their method. Once they talk you through their method, some of these questions, you'll have a significantly easier time doing it in the future. Thirdly, situational judgment. Look at the values of the company you're applying to, and when you go through the test itself, think to yourself, I want to embody these values. Have them, split your screen on Windows. If you click the Windows button plus left, Windows button plus right, you can have two things on the screen at once. Split your screen, have their values on the right-hand side, have the test on the left-hand side. You're going through it, making sure the decisions you're making are embodying those values.
This is genuinely genius for situational judgment. Another thing I would mention is for the numerical tests, one thing you can do is you can look online to see if there are any resources that you can find that mimic the kind of numerical tests you might come across. Particularly for when I was applying to companies like IBM, for example, I was able to find similar resources that really help prepare me. Additionally, after you have spoken to that mathsy friend, that mathsy friend for me was Amir. What you want to do is some of the applications that if you're not running out of time, if you take a couple of applications that are of lower priority to you, and you use those applications to practice, so that when you do apply for that company that you really, really want to get into, you're fully prepped at this point, and you stand a much better chance of getting through this round to like the interview or assessment center round, where you do much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic advice. I don't know if she's coming. I think Twinkle and what's her name?
Arena. It says she's messaged me 2 minutes before. It's quite strange. Happy to take another question in the chat.
Please make sure all questions are of a professional nature. Thank you, Vignesh. Cool. So Roy's asked, how important are interests in a CV, and do you prefer specific, i.e. dystopian novels, to more general interests, i.e. literature?
So I think generally speaking, interests, it really depends on what you're applying to. Because for me, if I were reading a CV, I do want to get to know more about you, but at the same time, I do want to see that you've gone out of your way and maybe create a project or something like that. So when people have been drawn to certain interests, such as cultural interests, for example, someone I know set up a cultural fashion line, for example, and for me that really stood out in a way within which they combined their passion for business with their passion for fashion, and they created something out of that. So I always think that if you have an interest that can be transformed, into creating value for other people and interacting with other people, that will speak volumes to me.
Yeah, equally, if you've taken your interest and you've done something with that interest, that is so fundamental. So if you have an interest per se, and you've become the president of that society, or you've taken a role of leadership in something related, or you made a startup, or you've had an NGO or non-profit organization that you set up yourself, that will go miles beyond anything else.
So to really answer the question, right, your interests are as important as you make your interests. So if you put 2 words down on your CV to mention an interest that you have, at the CV stage, it's not going to mean anything to me. Even if you tell me that you love trading, or that you love mountain climbing, for example, that will tell me a bit more about yourself, but it hasn't told me anything more about how that interest might make you a good fit for the company, or how you go about things in your extracurricular life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Are we good to move on to another question now?
Yeah, I'd say one last question.
Yeah, we can have one final question. I think Emmanuel has asked, hello, what's the best way to craft a CV without any or little work experience per se? So I think Emmanuel is currently at school right now and is about 18 years old.
Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is I want you to find like a general structure for a CV. You know, very simple. This is the kind of thing you can find online quite easily. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to think about what your experiences are. So when I was first applying to Spring Weeks in my first year, I had very little experiences, right? I had very little experiences. It was the kind of thing that I was very worried that, you know, I would struggle against someone with more. But I thought about the things that I had done within school that I'd be able to talk about. So we had like quite a big fundraising event in sixth form that I helped raise quite a bit of money for. So that enabled me to talk about a way within which I'd added value in a quantifiable way. So I was like, through this mechanism, through these activities, I was able to coordinate some of the fundraising activities, which led to a certain amount. And I would state that amount. So, you know, like £2,000 being raised for charity, for example. And another one, participating in something like Young Enterprise, and then talking about how maybe I did like some of the project management for that of like a team of like 10 people. And we ended up turning over like £500 over like a 6-day period. So again, this is taking your extracurricular activities and stuff you've done in school or within your societies, and then really, really showing how that's quantifiable and the skills that entails, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're someone who has like literally, you know, like you're coming out of school, you think, oh my God, I've got literally nothing. Like you've got like nothing to put down. What I would recommend is take the things that you care about and are passionate about and just start something to do with it. Start like go to Wix, make a website, start a blog, try doing something outside, something that you care about. Take an interest in the world and start putting yourself out there and doing something with your life. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give you. And you can talk about that for hours. Even if then, let's say you've still got absolutely nothing to talk about. What I would say is, you know, take some of the experiences that you've had, for example, in your, you know, that you've done in school, or if you participated in anything, and then talk about it as if, you know, what would you do if you were to organize that activity, and then actually do something to do with that. You know, go with your friends and do something that you've experienced in the past and try and recreate that.
Yeah, like for example, if you did like start that blog that Amir mentioned, right? You can use numbers to show how you grew engagement on that blog. Like if you say that you grew your engagement on that blog by 120% over a 3-week period, I'm interested in that, right? If you're applying for like a digital marketing role, if you are again talking about like the competitions that you've participated in school, like if you've done like any like academic competitions, that's really interesting as well to hear about. And always thinking, this is a big one, right? This is where a lot of people go wrong. You have to think about, so what? So whenever you organize, like even for example, Young Enterprise, you want to showcase the fact that you had some project management skills within Young Enterprise. You want to show that that enabled the team as a whole to get an outcome. And then that outcome might be some monetary outcome, or it might be some qualitative method within which you benefited the team. So always think about so what and what was the value, and you'll find that a lot of the experiences that you have had will be really transferable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've just reached the end of the stream. If you want to be on the stream next week, I'm going to send the link of both myself and Azhar on our LinkedIn. Send us a message. More than happy to try and help out anyone. You just you know, make sure that you tell us what you want to discuss, and we can hopefully have as many people on the show. We'll be here next week, same time, every single week, here with Steer, with Azhar and Amir. I hope you guys have a fantastic day.
And please subscribe.
All
Thanks,
right,
everyone.
awesome. See you guys soon.